The thing about real pain is that it doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't come in with sirens or storm clouds. It comes quietly, in the middle of a sentence you weren't expecting, in a room full of people pretending not to listen. It came for me on December 23rd, at 7:14 in the evening, standing in my own kitchen, holding a casserole dish I'd spent 2 hours making. My son looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're not real family anymore, Dad. You know that, right?" And the room went still. Let me back up. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 53 years old. I spent 26 years as a structural engineer in Columbus, Ohio. I coached Little League for 11 seasons. I drove to every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every orthodontist appointment, every single thing that required a father to show up, and I showed up. My son, Ethan, is 31 now. Built like me, talks with his hands like his mother, and for most of his life, I thought we understood each other at a level that didn't need much explaining. We weren't the type to say, "I love you," every phone call. We were the type who showed up. Or at least, I thought we both were. His mother, my ex-wife Carolyn, and I divorced when Ethan was 24. It wasn't dramatic. There was no affair, no blowout fight that shattered everything at once. We just slowly became two people who had spent so long building a life together that we'd forgotten to check whether we still wanted the same life. The divorce was civil. We divided things fairly. I kept the house in Gahanna. She moved 40 minutes away to Westerville. Ethan, by then already living with his girlfriend Paige, stayed close to both of us. For 3 years, things were fine. Awkward in that particular way divorced families are awkward, like a puzzle that still has all its pieces, just reassembled into a different picture. We did Thanksgiving separately. We did birthdays with whoever was around. Christmas, though, Christmas was always mine. That was the tradition. It had been since Ethan was 7, and we bought this house specifically because it had a fireplace, a real wood-burning one, and a staircase with a banister wide enough for stockings. Every December 25th, this house was the center of things. I cooked. My sister Linda drove up from Cincinnati with her husband Marcus and their 2 teenagers. My father came until he passed 4 years ago. And Ethan came. Always. Until Paige's family started pulling harder. I want to be fair about Paige. She's not a bad person. She's organized. She's driven. She works in hospital administration. And she loves Ethan. I genuinely believe that. But Paige comes from a family that operates like a corporation. Her mother, Diane, is the kind of woman who schedules fun in advance and then follows up with a reminder. Her family does Christmas big, rented vacation house in Gatlinburg, coordinated matching pajamas, the whole orchestrated production. And every year for the last 3 years, Ethan has spent Christmas with them and come to my house on the 26th or 27th. Sometimes for just a few hours. I didn't say much about it. I adjusted. I told myself that's what families do when kids grow up. You renegotiate the calendar. I kept cooking. I kept decorating. I kept making his room up like he might stay over, even when he didn't. This year, though, I'd asked early. Back in October, I'd called Ethan and said, "Hey, I want to plan something real this Christmas. Linda's bringing the whole family. I'm thinking a proper sit-down dinner on the 24th. Stay through the 25th. Can I count on you?" He said yes, without hesitation. I built everything around that yes. I ordered a standing rib roast from a butcher in Powell that I've been going to since. $1,999. I bought the good wine, not the bottle I keep for myself on a Tuesday, but the kind I save. I pulled out my mother's china that lives in a box in the basement 11 months of the year. Linda confirmed she was coming. I told my neighbor Joyce, who's been alone since her husband passed, that she was welcome too, and she cried a little on the phone and said she'd bring her pecan pie. I was happy. Genuinely, quietly happy in a way I hadn't been about Christmas in years. Ethan and Paige arrived the evening of the 23rd, which was the plan. Dinner that night. Wake up together on the 24th. Linda and her family arriving by noon. Simple. Real. Paige seemed distracted from the moment they walked in. She kept checking her phone while I was finishing dinner. Ethan was warm, relaxed, helped me set the table, opened a beer, and leaned against the counter the way he used to as a teenager when he talked to me while I cooked. For about 40 minutes, it felt like exactly what I'd been hoping for. Then Diane called. I didn't hear the call. I was in the kitchen. But I heard the shift in the room afterward. That particular silence that means something's been decided and nobody wants to be the one to say it. Paige came to the kitchen doorway and said, "Daniel, I'm so sorry, but Diane is asking if we can be in Gatlinburg by tomorrow afternoon. The house opens a day early, and she really wants the whole family together for the 24th. I set down the wooden spoon I was holding. Ethan and I talked about this in October, I said. Calm, measured. I know, and I'm sorry. It's her first Christmas since the divorce, and she's really struggling. Diane had separated from Paige's father over the summer. I knew that. I felt for her, I did. But I'd also planned everything around a promise. I looked past Paige to Ethan, who was standing in the living room doorway, and I said, "What do you want to do?" He looked at the floor for a second, then at Paige, then at me, and something in his expression shifted, something I still can't fully name. It wasn't guilt, exactly. It was something closer to a decision that had already been made before I asked the question. Dad, Paige's mom really needs us, and I planned this for 2 months based on what you told me in October. I know, but, Ethan, I kept my voice level. I'm not asking you to abandon Paige's mother. I'm asking you to honor something you committed to. That's when it happened. He exhaled, long and slow. And then, with something in his voice I'd never heard before, something that wasn't cruelty but landed like it, he said, Dad, I love you, but Paige's family is my real family now. They need me. You're my dad, but you're not real family anymore. You know that, right? You're kind of just the past. The casserole dish was in my hands. I remember that detail because I remember thinking very clearly, don't drop it. Not because it was expensive, because I needed something to hold on to. Joyce's pecan pie was sitting on the counter behind me. Linda was driving up from Cincinnati tomorrow morning. The rib roast was in the refrigerator. My mother's china was on the table. Okay, I said. Just that. Okay. They left that night. Packed their bag. Paige apologized again in that clipped, efficient way she had, and by 9 p.m., the house was quiet. I stood in the kitchen for a while, long enough that the oven timer went off and I'd forgotten what I'd put in. Turned out to be the dinner rolls. I ate one standing up over the sink, and I thought carefully about what I was going to do next. Here's the thing people misunderstand about me, and maybe about quiet people in general. We're not passive. We're not pushovers who don't have a spine. We're the people who think before we act, because we've learned that acting from raw emotion usually costs you more than it earns. But thinking before you act doesn't mean you don't act. It just means when you do, it counts. I picked up my phone. I called Linda. She answered on the second ring, and I could hear Marcus in the background and the sound of their kids arguing over something trivial. And for a second, I almost didn't say anything. Change of plans, I told her. What happened? I'll explain everything later. But I'm not doing Christmas here this year. Pack for warm weather. I'm booking us something. Pause. Danny, what? Trust me. Can you be flexible? Another pause. Then, softer. Of course I can. I called Joyce next. Told her Christmas was moving. Told her to bring the pecan pie anyway. She said, Honey, I'll go anywhere you tell me. Then I spent 45 minutes on my laptop booking 4 nights at a rental house in Amelia Island, Florida, a place I'd seen in a magazine at a doctor's office 3 years ago and thought, someday. It had a wraparound porch, a dock on the marsh, and enough bedrooms for everyone. It wasn't cheap, I didn't care. I called the butcher and Powell in the morning when they opened and asked if they could expedite a second cut to ship overnight. They could. I ordered everything we'd need. Then I sent Ethan a text. Not angry. Not long. Just changed the Christmas plans. Taking Linda and Joyce to Florida. Hope Gatlinburg is everything you need it to be. Merry Christmas. He replied 3 hours later. Wait, what? Seriously? I didn't answer. Amelia Island in December is not what most people picture when they picture Florida. It's quiet. The light is soft and low. The water is gray-green in the morning and gold in the afternoon. We arrived on the 24th, and Linda cried when she saw the porch. And Marcus made a fire in the outdoor fire pit that first night. And Joyce sat in an Adirondack chair, wrapped in a blanket, watching the dark water and said, Daniel, this is the nicest thing anyone's done for me in years. I cooked Christmas dinner with Linda at my elbow, stealing wine and telling old stories about our childhood Christmases. The real ones, the messy, loud ones with our parents and all the cousins. Her teenagers, who I half expected to be bored and on their phones, ended up fishing off the dock for 2 hours with Marcus, while Linda and I finished the meal together. We ate outside. The temperature was 58 degrees, which is almost unheard of in December even there. And we ate outside because why wouldn't we? It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. Maybe a decade. Ethan called on the 26th. I answered. Dad, I've been thinking about what I said. Good, I said. I said it wrong. I didn't mean Ethan. I wasn't cold, but I was clear. You didn't say it wrong. You said exactly what you meant. In the moment you meant it. And that's fine. You're allowed to feel that way. Dad, but I want you to understand something. I'm not angry. I'm not punishing you. I just decided that if I'm the past, then the past is going somewhere beautiful and eating well and spending time with people who are glad to have it. He was quiet for a long time. Was it good? He finally asked. Florida? Yeah, I said. It really was. We talked more after that. A real conversation. The kind we probably should have had 2 or 3 years ago. About where I fit in his life now. About what he actually feels versus what he said in a pressured moment. About Paige's family and my family. And the impossible geometry of trying to belong to more than once. He wasn't a villain. I want to be honest about that. He was a man caught between competing loves, who handled a hard moment badly and said something that cut deeper than he knew. I'd done versions of that myself. Most people have. But here's what I learned from that Christmas. The one on an island with a dock and a fire. And my sister laughing until she couldn't breathe. You don't fight for your place at the table by waiting to be invited back. You just build a better table. And you invite the people who already know your worth to sit down. The rib roast, by the way. I ended up cooking on Amelia Island on a grill I'd never used before. In a kitchen I didn't know. With Linda reading instructions off her phone and Joyce offering unhelpful but enthusiastic commentary from a bar stool. It came out perfect. Of course it did. Before you go, I have one question for you. Have you ever had a moment where someone you loved made you feel like you were the past? And how did you decide to respond?